So today we're talking about the NPCC national standards, and these, first of all, I've got Brendan Johnstone, who's the PDSE's national standards lead. But let's perhaps start off with, Brendan, with what are the national standards and perhaps what aren't they?
Okay, thanks, David. Hi, yes. So what are national standards? So the National Standards Programme, it kicked off about three years ago now, with the overall objective of trying to bring together policing, the private sector and the Home Office in a common approach for data and technical standards. It's intended that we produce something that would help drive innovation and drive down costs for policing. And the National Standards Service itself, it kind of boils down to these four components that you see on the screen right now. First thing that we did was to create a platform for hosting the standards, something that made standards more accessible to policing and the private sector as well. We have 142 standards on the platform at the moment. That number changes frequently. It can go up and go down depending on whether we load new standards on or retire old ones. It's completely open, so you don't need to log in to get access to the platform. And everything on there, it's been reviewed by us, it's been reviewed by policing as well. They've all been tagged, they've been categorized to make them easier to find. And all of the standards also have a little summary abstract alongside them as well. So there's no need to read through a huge monolithic 100-page standard document before determining that whether it's right for you or not. We've got little summaries there, so you can quickly tell at a glance whether it's what you're looking for or not. So that's the platform. The next thing that we did was we created a governance framework to provide the right direction and oversight for standards. We created two boards. The governance board, which was chaired by our SRO Chief Constable Joe Farrell, they meet quarterly and they maintain that overall holistic view of what's going on within policing. So they'll tell us whether or not we should be focusing on the likes of cloud standards or data standards, etc. And that governance board, excuse me, works in tandem with our assurance board as well. So the assurance board meets monthly, and it is staffed by experts from across policing, from the private sector, from the college, and from the Home Office, and they review all of the requests that we get regarding standards. So any requests to load a new standard onto the platform will come through the assurance board. Now, that is all backed up by what is probably the most significant component of our entire service, and that's our community of practitioners. We created 15 practitioner groups across a range of categories. We've got a practitioner group for digital media, for data, for forensics, for asset management. And these practitioner groups, they provide an extra level of assurance to assure that anything we're loading onto the platform is fit for purpose. They review all of the standards before they are loaded onto the platform, and they provide feedback. These are guys who work who are experts in their fields, so they really do provide that extra level of assurance that what we're doing has been, gone through a rigorous process, and we're actually providing the right standards for policing. Now, those three components, they kind of describe how we manage standards. But something else that we do is we do a lot of engagement. We engage with policing programs. We engage with the private sector, with academia, and with government. And we do that for a number of different reasons. One, we just want to let people know that we're here, and please come and use the platform. But we also want to get all of those good artifacts, all of those good standards that are created by policing. So, and we know policing programs create principles and they create standards. We want to get those and put those onto the platform. We also want to work with suppliers and try and guide them towards adopting the standards that are right for policing. So we work with them to say, these are the standards that policing want us to adopt. So we try and guide them towards that and help them overcome barriers to adopting standards. And then government bodies, government departments, they are frequently producing new strategies around data, around security. So we keep in touch with the government and academia just to make sure that we're not diverging from what the national strategies are, so that we're all on the same page. So that, David, collectively is what national standards is in a nutshell. So.
And one of the things that we wanted to dispel is a little bit of a myth that they are PDSE standards. They're actually not. They're the National Police Chiefs and the policing standards. We are the curators and help to facilitate and provide the platform. But this is a really fantastic example of PDSE's mantra of for policing, by policing, with policing. We are there facilitating, isn't it, Brendan? And they're not PDSE standards. They're everyone's in policing's.
Yeah, we're completely agnostic to who authors these standards. It doesn't matter whether it comes from the NCSE or GDS, or whether it comes from a policing program. PDS, we kind of just play a coordination role in this. So we're just there to make sure that the process runs, that anything that we do put onto the platform actually has been through a consistent assurance process. That's the important part. That's what standards are, the national standard servers are. It's not, PDS's involvement is really just one of coordination on behalf of the NPCC.
Well, if you could start sharing your screen so you can actually show us where they are, because they're actually on a link from the PDS website on the Knowledge Hub, publicly accessible with no login required at all. Anybody can access them to do them. So do you want to take us through how to access them, how they're structured, and how they can help police forces and suppliers to ensure we're getting that interoperability that we're so looking for in the way that we approach things?
Okay, yep, sure, I'll do that. Okay, so this is the National Standards Platform. I'll take about 10 minutes to go through this little demo. All of the content is shared across these 6 tabs at the top. I'm not going to go into all of them today. I'll pick out the parts that I think are more relevant. On the overview tab, first thing we have is a little intro from our previous SRO, Chief Constable Joe Farrell. If I scroll down, I do want to point out that it's not just standards on the platform. We do have guidelines, we have principles and policies as well. And if you're interested in knowing more about how things work, how the standards are managed, and who we are, we do have an FAQ section which explains these things in a little bit more detail. So here you can see how what the process of the standards actually go through. I do want to point out something that I think is quite important. We do have 3 gradings that are applied to maybe only 6 or 7 standards on the platform. And if you were just looking for the absolute minimum set of standards that you really should, that everybody should be trying to converge on and trying to adopt, I would look for standards that have any of these 3 gradings: LMR, PMR, and DFP. And briefly, what they are is LMR are legislative mandatory requirements. So anything with an LMR grade it has some sort of basis in legislation. So these are our accessibility standards or our GDPR standards. PMR, policing minimum requirement. Anything with this grade has been assessed by an expert or a lead from the NPCC, and they've determined that this standard is best of breed within a particular area. So please adopt these ones too. And DFP, designed for policing. These standards have been created by policing programs themselves. So typically what has happened is a program's kicked off, they've looked for a standard, they couldn't find one, so they've led the way in developing a brand new standard. And these should be considered best practice as well. Okay, so the only other thing I want to point out on this first tab are these 3 links at the top. If you just want to quickly dive in and see all of the live standards on the platform, there's a link here for that. If you're a member of one of our community of practitioner groups, or if you're interested in joining, and please do, by the way, you can click on this link and it will show you the standards that are currently out for consensus with them. So it'll show you the standards that are about to be loaded onto the platform. And very important, if you're actually working on a program or a project that is thinking of developing a brand new standard, developing standards from scratch is quite expensive. It's quite time consuming. You can come here, you can check this link, and it will take you to all the standards that are currently being developed somewhere within policing right now. So you can come here, you can check if somebody else is working on developing a standard that would meet your needs. Okay, I'm going to hop over to the next tab, categories. So all of the standards on the platform are squeezed into one of these 15 category groups. These categories actually map directly to what our community of practitioner groups are as well. So we have an analytics community of practitioner group and we have a cloud one. We kind of took the approach of grouping them in this high level, just to allow people to quickly come to the platform and dive into something that they're interested in. So if you're interested in data, you could just come here to the categories tab, click on data, and then it will take you to the main part of our platform, which is the search tab. It's brought back all of the standards in the data category. You can see them here in the main part of the screen. Along the left part of the screen, you can see all of the various tags and filters that are there to help narrow down the selection. By default, the live filter will be applied. If you wanted to see all of the standards, even the ones that have been retired, you can just remove that filter and go down. All right. And it has returned 2 more standards. One of them is currently in draft. The other one's been retired. They're both grayed out to show that they're not live standards, so there's no confusion there. We took the decision to keep retired standards on the platform, mainly because a lot of people said that a lot of people on the assurance board said that decisions that were made about current systems were based on previous versions of standards. So it was quite good to have them there as a reference or as a guide as to why we made certain decisions previously. So that's why we have retired standards still on the platform. Now, if I just come back up, select the live, reapply the live filter. And if you, I'm scrolling down here, if you just want to see our PMR graded standards or LMR standards, you can do that. If I scroll down to the bottom, we can see all of the tags that are applied to one or more of the data standards that have been returned. If I want to narrow down the standards even further, I can just select one. I'll select interoperability. It's returned 2 standards. The first of which are our poll data standards. Now they have a grading of DFP and PMR, which means you really should be looking to try and adopt these poll data standards. If I click on this link, it'll take me to the detail. So we can see here, it's returned some metadata about the standard at the top, the data was published, who the target audience are, and here's the abstract. So the idea is that you would come to the platform, you would search for a standard, you would click on this link. After reading the abstract, if you think, well, yes, this is the standard I'm looking for, this meets my needs, you can then click on one of the links at the bottom, which will take you to the actual standard itself. But however, if you get to this point and you decide, well, actually, that's not quite right, the abstract doesn't sound quite accurate to me, you can look at the tags that are applied to this standard down here, and you can just search for those as well. So you can look for other standards that are similar, that have similar tags. So I'm going to type in dictionary. And what that has done is, initially it looks like it hasn't done anything, but it has kept the original poll data standard open, and then has returned all of the other standards on the platform that have a similar tag dictionary as well. So you can scroll down and then compare and contrast what standards what standards meet your needs, and you can compare it with the open standard that you have.
If I just ask, why is it so important that department leads, procurement leads, IT leads are looking at these standards when they're starting a transformation or a procurement process? How will it help them?
Well, I mean, that's like asking, why would you test and update to your system? Standards should just be something that you build into your process. We have, we have emerging technologies, we have emerging threats all the time. Right now we have a big scramble around AI standards. We have new standards coming all the time, and if you want to try and leverage the positive opportunities from these emerging technologies, or limit your exposure to particular risks in particular areas, standards is the way that you do that. And I mean, depending on your department, if you're in procurement, it's a good way to ensure that the providers are all at a base level. If you're working in security, it's a good way to ensure that you're aligning to a base level of security as well. So, and I will reiterate, it's not something that you do once. It really is something that you should continually try and refine or continue try and to update within your systems, because standards do change and they need to be reflected in our systems as well.
And on that point, sometimes people say, why should I adopt a standard if it's not mandatory and it's going to change over the next coming years? Why don't I just go with what I've got? Well, that really doesn't help us with the interoperability, does it?
No, I mean, if you think of it in terms of if rather than adopting a standard design, you just use your own design for a system, then all you're doing there is just using a very good design that nobody else is using. You're not converging with the wider sort of ecosystem of systems. You're not converging with other systems within policing. The best way to improve interoperability, to improve data quality between systems, is to adopt the same standards. And my view is, why wouldn't you just adopt standards that policing have said are the ones that they want, the ones that they think are good? And that's what this platform is all about. It's about highlighting the standards that policing have said, right, okay, we've had a look at these standards, we think they're good. If you adopt them, we'll begin to converge on these certain standards. We can start to improve data quality, and we can improve interoperability between systems.
And so this is probably where we come to pole standards in particular. Most of the standards, as you've said, are mentioned, are owned by different parts of policing and are developed by different groups. But pole was a little bit different, wasn't it?
Yes. So pole, last year, the National Standards Governance Board identified a gap in that there was no common pole data standard across policing. So they asked us to go out and try and fix that, to develop a common data standard, which is what we did. We went out, we consulted with policing, we looked at all the systems, we consulted with the private sector. There was an extensive consensus phase for this standard. We drafted a new standard. We reviewed it in large webinars. We got over 500 items of feedback, and it eventually resulted in the creation of this pole data standard, which you see here. So that's why we did it. Now, to tell you a bit more about pole, so for anyone who isn't aware, pole is a common acronym used within policing. It stands for person, object, location, event, and it's a very common way of organizing policing records. So this standard itself, it contains the definition of 44 different pole entities. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually open the standard here to give you a view of what those entities are. I realize I've just opened a standard in the middle of a webinar. It's 137 pages long. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but you can see here that the entities are defined to quite a detailed level. So this is the suspect known entity, and within it, it has all of the fields and the attributes that make up this entity. So we have the name, gender, etc., and it also has the validation rules for it as well, and it has the format of it. Now, as I said, 137-page document isn't the best way to represent the pole data standard. So what we have done is we have created a data model to go along with that. And this is what the pole data standard looks like. This is a visualization of it. These are the entities that we have defined. Here we have suspect known, witness, associations, etc. And here are the fields that are associated with those entities. And we have defined these fields, the format, the validation, to a very detailed level. And we've also, where there are constrained lists, where there are constrained values, for the likes of gender and ethnicity, we've included that in the data model as well. So this is kind of a one-stop shop for implementing a common data model that policing have said is good for policing.
And I think this is really key to the work as we go forward. And if you think back to the links to the National Digital Technology Strategy, but data's a common theme all the way through, and they've been able to match people records, make sure an officer on the ground at 2 in the morning has got all that latest information. We're reliant on being able to link these different data sources together so that we can make some really critical decisions at the front line. So this is really important in terms of how we progress it and move these things forward. So Brendan, what are the benefits of using the standards as part of your general work? You know, is it about decision making, or is it a bit short term, medium term, long term, all of them?
Well, I think that it probably boils, for the likes of the POL data standard, it boils down to two things. It boils down to improving data quality and improving interoperability. So interoperability, that's the ability for policing systems to work together without the need for manual intervention. So there's a lot of data transformation between systems. Data is extracted from one system, it's transformed a little bit, and then gets loaded and it's aggregated and it gets loaded into a different system. And that's a lot of effort. And really all that does is create different data sets within policing. If we all adopt the same data set, then we remove that need to transform that data in between systems. They can just communicate directly. You cut down on all the added effort needed to maintain data, and it just starts to flow between systems. And that's the intended main benefit for POL data standards.
Fantastic. We have got a couple of questions coming in, so please do pop them in a second and we'll come to them. I was just going to ask a little question about how wide-ranging the standards are, because this is where there's some real benefits and some help for policing and help for suppliers as well. You've got everything in there, including disposal of IT equipment and things like that. If you're a supplier, what's the benefit of going to the standards before you pitch in for bids or take part in any procurement process?
Well, I mean, it's almost like you get your foot on the first rung of the ladder. If you're bidding for something, why wouldn't you align yourself with the standards that the policing have said are good? I mean, that's a bit of a. I think this is where the platform really actually does help suppliers, because you can quickly see, like, here are the standards that policing have said are minimum requirements. Here are the ones that are that they adopt because of legislative reasons. Why, if you don't align yourself with those standards, then all you're doing is not aligning with what policing have said is good for policing. So,
and it's a collaborative approach in terms of bringing these standards together, and that includes the private sector as well. How do you collaborate to establish these standards?
I said earlier that the private sector, we've got members of the private sector on our assurance board. If I can share can I share my screen again?
You can, yes.
Okay. So one thing I wanted to show on the on the platform is how you can actually collaborate with us and have a say with in the standards that policing provide gradings to. So if I click on our Contact Us tab, click this link, and it'll take you to this little portal. If you're in the private sector and you want to have your say regarding what standards policing you think are good for policing, you can do that. You can click on this link here to join one of our community practitioner groups. All you have to do is pop in your email and then select the groups that you're interested in. You can select them all if you wish. And what that will do is we'll add you to those groups anytime we are considering loading a standard onto the platform. You'll be involved in that feedback consensus stage, and we'll also keep you informed of any developments regarding standards as well. So you'll get little monthly mail shots telling you what's happening within the world of standards.
That's fantastic. If I can go to one of the questions that's come in, it's a question from Ian Bailey, who's one of the suppliers. Thanks for sharing the links. I expected to see the IES standard on here, an evolution of POL used in the CT work, but no sign of it. As far as I know, a few law enforcement agencies are using it. Is it probably worth adding? Is there a purpose or a way of proposing a standard for the site? And this is something we spoke about, that quite often you get proposals for standards that are already there as well, don't you?
We do. Now, it's funny you should mention IES. I'm actually I have a meeting tomorrow morning on the ISE4 standard for exactly this reason. If you want to propose a standard that isn't on the platform, you can do it through that portal that I just showed you. So I showed you the link to join one of the practitioner groups. A couple of links below that, there's a link for building new standards. So it's all available through the platform.
And another question coming in is that data model actually available as a link through the standards, or is that something you could share separately?
It will be soon.
It will be soon.
Yes.
Fantastic.
So, yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I think we're running short of time. So just a reminder, thanks for Brendan for joining us today and taking us through that. I do encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can get the latest webinars as we upload them if you can't make them live. And if you do want to join us again live, if you head over to the PDS website on the events page, you'll be able to find the links and be able to make calendar updates for them. Also, if you subscribe to our mailing list, we do send them out a couple of days ahead, so you can make sure you get reminders of what's coming up. And speaking of what's coming up, next week we're going to go fishing. I've been promising Richard in our team that I'd go talk about going fishing, but we're going to be looking at keeping data safe out next week. And then we've got a couple of fantastic force-led webinars where we've got asset tracking with Leicestershire Police, which is a really good way of helping sure we've got the right kit with the right people at the right time. And then a webinar on firearms policy and decision log. So a great deal still coming up over the next couple of weeks. We do hope you can keep joining us and taking part in what's going on. Head over to the PDS website, visit the solutions catalogue, and suppliers as well. Have a look at what we've already got available on our free for horses solutions catalogue to give you an idea of the sort of things that we are constantly focusing on over in PDS. Brendan, once again, thanks for joining us, and thanks to everybody for joining us. Hope you can view some of our other webinars soon.